I've been thinking a lot about seasons, not just the seasons in Scripture, but the seasons we live through in our lives. In Alaska, we feel the changing of the seasons in a way that's hard to describe if you haven't lived here. The days are so short, the darkness can feel very heavy, and slowly, almost silently, something begins to shift. The sun starts to stay a little longer, the light stretches into the evening. You begin to feel hope again for a new season. Spring in Alaska does not come all at once. It arrives little by little. Sometimes in seasons of our life, faith can feel like that too. When I read the passage about Jesus in the garden, I'm struck by how very human that moment is. It's not necessarily the triumphant image that we have of Christ, but it's just human, incredibly vulnerable. Jesus kneels and prays, "Father, if you will, don't make me suffer." That prayer is so honest. It's not polished. It's not pretending that the road ahead is going to be easy. It's full acknowledgement. It's a prayer of someone who knows exactly what's coming and still brings that pain before the Father and is completely honest. And I find so much comfort in that. When we go through difficult times in our life, I think it's very important to remember that Jesus models how our relationship with God should be. It reminds us faith does not mean pretending that we're strong all the time. It doesn't mean that we hold or hide our fears or our questions, but that we can show our true selves and our true heart to God, and we can trust Him with that. What moves me the most, of course, is what Jesus says next, which is so incredibly brave. But do what you want and not what I want. Jesus does not deny the pain in front of him, does not minimize it, but he places his trust in the Father's will. And sometimes the most powerful prayer that we can pray in our life is simply, "God, I trust you with what I cannot see." Luke tells us that while Jesus was praying, an angel came and strengthened him. And I think that detail matters because it happened in the moment of surrender. The strength didn't come before the prayer. It came during that surrender, during that honest moment. And I think many of us have experienced that. Moments where we come to God tired and uncertain, discouraged. But when we begin to pray, something shifts. We kneel in prayer and peace starts to come. Strength, clarity comes. Not because the situation immediately changes, although it's amazing when that happens, but because God meets us there. Being in Alaska really teaches us something about seasons. It certainly has taught me a lot about it. Seasons of perseverance. For me, one of the ways this lesson shows up is getting outside. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the cold. I love being outside. I love the quiet of the trails, the deep, dark, rich forests, Robert Frost poems, and the whole 9 yards. I just love it. But if I'm really honest, I hate being cold. I hate that idea of being in my warm house and going outside in negative temperatures where it's just turning my nose red and just bites. But there is always that moment when I step outside, I question what I'm doing, I wonder why I signed up for this. But when I stay with it, when I stick with it, keep moving, something always shifts. My breathing settles, my body warms up, the forest grows quiet around me. The cold, it doesn't disappear, but it stops being the thing that defines the experience. And eventually there are these unexpected moments of joy. Sunlight on fresh snow, the rhythm of movement through the trees, the quiet beauty in all creation. Feels like being in a snow globe today. Being in Alaska teaches me something quietly over time. Sometimes you have to move through discomfort before you can discover the joy. Sometimes it's something that you have to experience and persevere through, and there's a lesson to be learned in that. Faith really feels like that sometimes. There's seasons where things feel cold, where the road ahead feels really uncertain, and where obedience asks us to step into places we really wouldn't naturally choose. The scripture reminds us that joy does not depend on the circumstances around us. Nehemiah 8:10 says, the joy that comes from the Lord is your strength. And this kind of joy, it's different than happiness because it, you know, it comes because God's present, not necessarily because the season has ended, if that makes sense. Joy shows up after we surrender, after we trust God in a moment where we would rather turn back. That's exactly what we see in the garden. I wouldn't necessarily say a joyful moment, but we know what was coming ahead. We knew what was coming next, that hope. Because Jesus brought his honest heart before God and chose to do this. Not my will, but your will. In that moment of surrender, strength came. When Jesus returns to his disciples, he finds them asleep, and Luke says they were overwhelmed with sorrow. That line feels so familiar too, because sometimes we're like the disciples. We want to stay spiritually awake. We want to be faithful, but life is heavy. We get tired. And Jesus responds with not condemnation, but invitation. Wake up and pray. Come back to the place where strength is found. Come back to the place where God is going to meet us. The gardens where Jesus prayed and found surrender is also the beginning of something so much greater. Because what followed was the cross. And after that was resurrection, which is the ultimate joy. And that's what was on the other side. And I think that is such a beautiful reflection, especially in this season. The promise we hold on to in every season of life is that salvation, even the difficult ones, because God is always moving the story towards redemption. So whenever we find ourselves, no matter what season, that invitation that Jesus gave his disciples is the same today as it was 2,000 years ago. Bring your honest heart to God. Come back to prayer and trust that even in the long seasons of waiting, the light is already beginning to return. God bless you.